Hey, thank you for tuning in. In Exodus chapter number 15, we saw them sing forth praise to God. In the second part of the chapter, we're seeing that they're going to continue their journey. They have come through the Red Sea on dry ground. They've seen their enemies destroyed, and now God is leading them. In verse number 22, it says, Then Moses made Israel set out from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink the water of Marah because it was bitter. Therefore, it was named Marah. And the people grumbled against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? And he cried to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a log. And he threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. So we have to remember from the very beginning that God himself, through the pillar of the cloud and the pillar of the fire, is leading Israel to where he wants them to be. So where they go and the circumstances they find themselves in are not accidental. He brought them to the place, they're in the wilderness, an actual desert area north of the Red Sea, and there was no water. And they go to Marah, which is the place of bitterness, and the water was bitter and they couldn't drink it. So why would God lead them to a place that he knew the water was bitter? Because God was bringing them on a journey to show them their utter dependence upon him. And he takes you and I on that same journey. We cross the Red Sea to know the salvation of the Lord. But God brings us in our new relationship as the beloved of God, sometimes through desert places and through difficult circumstances, in order to reveal to us the insufficiency of self-sufficiency, to show us that from beginning to end, it's not about us and our ability, but about his ability, so that we won't have a self-confidence seeking a self-righteousness, but we will have a Christ confidence, that Christ in me is always going to be with me. And even when he leads me to the place of the desert and reveals some needs, that I won't look to myself as the solution. I'll look to him. And so they come and they've got bitter water and they're desperate because there's hundreds of thousands of men, let alone women and children. And what are they going to do? And they grumble and complain, which can become their pattern. You see, the slave mentality still looks and says, man, what did I do? Why am I here? What's going on? And they've forgotten the glorious song of praise they just sang. Instead of turning to God to see what God wanted to do and how he was going to deliver, they grumbled. And then Moses cries to God. And God says, see that log there? Throw that log in that water and it became sweet. You see, the Lord is so powerful that he can change what is bitter to sweet when we trust in him. It's why Paul says that he works all things together for good that love him and are called according to his purpose. It doesn't mean that everything that happens in our life is good. Not every circumstance we face is pleasant or pleasurable, but he says, I will use the bitter to become sweet. When he brings us to brokenness where we say, Lord, I can't, we enter into a place of victory where he says, I can. And that's what he's doing in all of our lives. Not to make us strong and independent, but to reveal our weakness so that he can be our strength. He says, take that log and put it in. Now, I don't think the log really was of any significance in healing power. I think it was just a log. It was just an object. Give them something to throw in as an act of faith, to hear what God says and obey. And they took the log and they threw it in, and that which was bitter became sweet. Oftentimes, God gives these strange objects for us to act in faith. Jesus ran into a blind man one day, and he spits in the mud, the dirt, and makes a little mud and puts it in his eyes and say, "Now go cleanse and see." There was nothing significant about the spit or the mud that he placed on his eyes. It was just a test of faith to see, will he act and obey on what God says? And he received his healing. And they received sweet water. When we hear what God wants us to do and we obey, the bitter becomes sweet. So then he goes on and he says, "And there the Lord made for them a statute and a rule, and there he tested them, saying, if you will diligently listen to the voice of the Lord your God, and do that which is right in his eyes, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord your healer." He gives them a statute at the very beginning. He says, this was a test. Now think with me. Why does the teacher give the test? Teachers don't give tests so that teachers can find out what they know. Teachers give tests so students can discover what they know and what they don't know. The test is not for the teacher primarily, it's for the student. Why does God test us? Why did he test Israel? So they could see what was yet lacking. So that you and I can see what is yet lacking. To show us that the path forward is not self-will and self-direction, self-empowerment, but trusting in the Almighty. To trust in the one who is our healer. God doesn't promise to heal all of our physical ailments because we're people who are simply passing through. We're temporary residents until we get to that eternal home. Our citizenship is in heaven. But oh friends, he does heal. He can heal physical ailments. I have no doubt. I have seen it. And he can heal the soul, the wounds that we incur solically by living in a fallen world. And he heals perfectly the spirit that was alienated to God because of sin. And that was the beauty of the perfect work of the cross. That when we entrust ourselves to him, when we believe upon that purpose sacrifice, our spirit is completely healed. He is our healer. And no matter what circumstances and trials we're facing in this world, he's our healer. The ultimate healing when we're united to him in that great city where the foundation is built upon Christ. He says, then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the water. First, the Lord brought them to the place of no water. Then he brought them to the place of bitter water so he could show them that he's the one that brings the bitterness to sweet. And then he brings him to the place of abundance. I think that's part of the Christian journey as well. He brings us to the place where we know we can't save ourselves. We'll never be good enough. We cry out to him and he saves us. And there are periods in life where we face circumstances and trials and difficulties that we cannot overcome in our own power. That overwhelms us. I've heard people say many times, God never gives you more than you can handle. And I say, lie, 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 lie. God often gives you more than you can handle because he never intended for you to be the one that handled it. He's the one who wants to handle it in you and through you. Because it's not all about you being strong, but in your weakness, discovering the strength that he is in you and for you. And one day soon, he will bring you to that place of abundance, for he is the healer and the provider. Be encouraged and have a great day.